I'm Charlie Satgast with MyAncestorBox.com. One of the most frequent questions we hear from our audience is, which flatbed scanner should I buy? Well, for years we recommended the Epson Perfection V600 flatbed scanner, which has a scanning area of 8.5 by 11.7 inches and an optical resolution of 6,400 dots per inch. Now, there are two things that make the V600 such a good scanner. First, the V600 uses a high-quality CCD optical sensor array, which delivers really crisp scans that tend to be true to the original photo. Second, the V600 has a light inside the lid, which allows you the option to scan slides and negatives. Unfortunately, the cost of CCD sensors has risen sharply, and at the same time, the market for consumer-grade photo scanners is shrinking. So in 2025, Epson discontinued the V600 from their photo scanner lineup, a move that had already been made by Canon, Epson's biggest competitor in the consumer photo scanner market. As of this recording in 2026, PlusTech is the only company still making a consumer-grade photo scanner with a CCD sensor, but its $649 price tag might be a stretch if you only have a few hundred photos to scan. So where does that leave us? Are there any decent flatbed photo scanners available now, aside from looking for them on an auction site like eBay? The best consumer-grade flatbed photo scanner in Epson's current lineup is the Epson Perfection V39-2, which has a price point of just over $100. I was pretty skeptical that the V39-2 could produce scans that were as good as the V600 because the V39-2 uses a lower-cost CIS optical sensor, and many of the entry-level CIS-based scanners that we've tested were disappointing. I wanted to find out, so I picked up a Perfection V39-2 at a local big box store, and I did a side-by-side comparison test using several photos, one set using the Epson V600 and the other set using the currently available and lower-priced Epson V39-2. The family photos I picked range from photos with good lighting and contrast to some photos with problems, such as fading or having a backlit subject in the photo, or photos that were too dark or had overblown color. I ran the test using the Epson Scan 2 software that's made for both of these scanners, and I used the exact same settings for both sets of tests. For the first set of tests, I ran a scan at 600 dots per inch with no software enhancements turned on. And then I ran a second scan with two specific software enhancements the Epson Scan 2 software offers: unsharp mask in the middle setting and color restoration turned on. After I finished all of my test scans, I concluded that most of my scans benefited from the enhancements being turned on. So those are the scans you'll be seeing. The first set of scans is of Linda's and my two kiddos back in about 1988, sitting with Linda's mom. The scan from the Epson Perfection V600 is on the right, and the scan from the V39-2 is on the left. The first thing that strikes me is how close these two scans are to each other. We've done comparison tests before, pitting the V600 against scans from lower-priced scanners made by Brother and HP, and there was absolutely no comparison with the results from the Epson V600. But here the differences are really subtle. There is identical detail between the scans in darker areas like hair. There's a slight difference in brightness, which you'll see in all of my test scans, with the V39-2 making the photos just a little brighter than the scans from the V600. But overall, both have good detail, good color that's close to the original paper photo, and either one would be an acceptable scan to save for future generations. The second photo is of our son and daughter in the early 90s on a trip to Guatemala. The V600 has slightly peachier skin tones, but otherwise the colors are true to the original photo. When I zoom in, I find that the V600 has a tiny bit better definition than the V39-2, but that's to be expected because they use different types of optical sensors. The V600 uses a CCD sensor array, and the V39-2 uses a less costly CIS sensor array. But again, the differences are so subtle. No one is going to be looking at those photos with a magnifying glass. Again, the biggest problem spot with most cheaper scanners, like all-in-one scanner printer copiers from other brands, is the very noticeable loss of detail in darker areas of photos. But comparing the dark areas of the tree and grass in the lower left of this photo shows no loss of detail at all with the V39 II. If anything, the V39 II actually picks up a tiny bit more detail than the V600. Very impressive from a low-cost scanner. One last comparison. Here's a photo of my wife Linda in a boat on Lake Atitlan in Guatemala on the same trip. It's a bit of a problem photo because her face is shaded on a bright day and she's wearing a bright orange-red shirt. The sun is playing off her shirt and the yellow hull of the boat, giving her face a particularly reddish hue. When I zoom in on her face, I see a bit more graininess in the scan from the cheaper V39 II. Again, the output from the V39 II is a tiny bit lighter than the output from the V600, but otherwise they're both acceptable scans that look very much like the original photo, and both would be worthy to have in a digital collection that's saved for future generations. So the bottom line, I am really impressed by the Epson Perfection V39 II. My one caveat is that this scanner won't scan slides or negatives because it has no light in the lid. I have heard from a few people who've ordered a light box from Amazon and placed that light source upside down on top of the V39 II to scan their slides or negatives. The native optical resolution of the Epson Perfection V39 II is 4,800 dots per inch, which would make your scan 16 times bigger than the original slide. That's plenty of native resolution to scan your slides or negatives if you want to experiment with it. But I have not tried this, so I'm just passing information. You'll be on your own for figuring out scanner settings if you decide to try the Lightbox route to scan your slides and negatives. As I already mentioned, I've done tests with other lower-end scanners in the past, and most of those tests have been disappointing. If the original photo you're scanning is really good and the color and shadows are well balanced, the resulting scan is going to look pretty good, no matter which scanner you use. But if the photo has problems like dark areas or blown out color, most low-end scanners are going to struggle and give you poor results. But the photo quality Epson is able to coax out of that V39 II with its less expensive CIS sensor array is amazing for a scanner priced at just over $100. It handles problem photos pretty much as well as the V600. The one other quick thing I'll mention about the V39 II is that it has no power cord or power supply brick like all the other scanners we've ever used. It just takes a single USB cable and manages to communicate between your computer and scanner and power the scanner with just that one little cable. It's also a very compact scanner that's about the size of an older, thicker laptop computer. It would be really easy to throw this into a briefcase or carry-on bag if you're going to someone's home to scan their photos. To close, I'll just be honest with you, the days of paper photos are mostly over, and as the generation that's been the keeper of those boxes of photos, slides, and negatives continues to pass away, it's going to get harder and harder to find resources to scan those photos. If you've been waiting to get a scanner, I think now is the time. And for dealing with your paper photos, the Epson Perfection V39 II is a really good bet. By the way, if you want to learn the 3 mistakes you need to avoid like the plague with your boxes of photos, be sure to check out our free training at SaveMyBoxes.com.